The day the imperial son-in-law planned to elope with his cousin, I happened to witness it. To protect the girl he cherished most, he drew his sword and thrust it toward me, and I directly broke both of his legs, imprisoned him in a dark room. I had prepared myself for a life of pure hatred and mutual torment with him, but I never expected that 3 months later, that gentle and kind grand tutor once again captured my heart. From then on, I let go of my resentment towards Xie Yuanchen. But when I opened the secret chamber door to set the consort free, his gaze, red with hatred, fell upon my hand tightly clasped with the grand tutor's, speaking with a hoarse voice, "Princess, are you abandoning me because of him?" Xie Yuanchen genuinely wanted to kill me. Back then, it was he who knelt and kowtowed step by step, pleading before the Golden Yuan Hall, trading his promising career for our marriage contract. But now, he no longer loves me. He was discovered by me while arranging to elope with someone else. To protect his beloved cousin from my harm, Xie Yuanchen drew his sword towards me, the blade pointing in my direction. After raising my hand and slapping the little cousin who had provoked me, Xie Yuanchen's icy blade thus swept away a few strands of my hair at the temples. A faint cut appeared on my cheek, from which fine beads of blood seeped out, just a little lower with the blade, and it would reach the vulnerable neck. I roared, my hand gripping the blade, pressing it against my neck as blood gushed out. My gaze toward him was as cold and venomous as poison, and I said, "Xie Yuanchen, if you have the guts, then strike. But do you truly have the courage to harm a member of the royal family?" Seeing this, Xie Yuanchen's gaze was resolute, and the hand gripping the sword hilt did not waver in the slightest. For a moment, I saw genuine killing intent on his face. The sound of Shen Yuang's weeping nearby snapped him back to his senses. His expression returned to normal as he spoke to me in a low voice. "Back then, when WN Niang was pregnant with my child, it was you who refused to let her enter the house and harmed her child. Now that I've decided to take her away, you still won't let it go. Yunzhu, why must you be so vicious and push people to the brink?" Upon hearing this, Shen Yuang's sobs grew even more pitiful. But from an angle only visible to me, the hatred in her eyes was unmistakable. This foolish woman, having an affair with the consort, dares to get pregnant before the princess. 3 days ago, she even came to me in tears, pleading. She said that as an orphan, Xie Yuanchen merely pitied her for her miserable situation and gave her a place to stay out of momentary compassion. She also said she didn't dare ask for status. She only begged me to be merciful and allow her to enter the mansion as a maid by Xie Yuanchen's side, content just to see him every day. Her words were humble, but the provocation and smugness on her face were impossible to hide. I understand what she meant. We have been married for 3 years, and Xie Yuanchen and I have lived apart for 1 year. In 3 years, Xie Yuanchen never gave me a child, but she did. With Xie Yuanchen's heart set on her, she could be more noble than me, a princess. Now she's flaunting her pregnancy right in front of me, confident that I'll tolerate it to keep Xie Yuanchen's heart, but no one has ever been able to flaunt like this in front of me. So by the time Xie Yuanchen rushed over, Shen Yuan had already drunk 3 bowls of safflower and miscarried. Her blood soaking through her plain white clothes, she trembled, lying prostrate on the floor like a flower withering in the wind. Xie Yuanchen's pupils suddenly contracted. For a moment, I even clearly sensed that he wanted to strangle me, but he still maintained his last shred of reason. He picked up Shen Yuan and looked at me coldly, his entire demeanor neither humble nor arrogant. "She has been harmed by you like this and can no longer bear children, nor can she threaten you anymore. Yunzhu, you should be satisfied. He made a condition with me. I no longer have any love for you. If you allow WN Niang into the mansion and give her the position of a concubine, our lives can still go on." With that, he paused for a moment before speaking again, as if to emphasize his point. "Yunzhu, this is what you owe her." "Xie Qing," I said from my high seat, glancing at him sideways with a lazy tone. In this princess's residence, I am the ruler and you are the subject. What right do you have to make demands of me? As if he didn't recognize me, Xie Yuanshen's disappointed gaze fell upon me, scrutinizing me for a long time. Finally, he laughed in response. Your Highness, you are truly something. Su Yunju, you can keep looking down on everyone like this, but no one will ever like you. You're destined to be alone for the rest of your life. He turned and walked away, holding Shen Yuan in his arms, not even bothering to bow to me. I remained seated, my eyes fixed on his retreating figure, wishing I could bore a hole through him. My fingers dug into the red sandalwood armrests, my knuckles turning white from the pressure. Ever since I crawled out of the cold palace at the age of 8, I have climbed step by step to become the most prominent princess in the Yun dynasty. No one has ever humiliated me like this before, and that person turned out to be Xie Yuanchen, the man who grew up with me, supporting each other, who gave up inheriting the title and entering officialdom just to spend his life with me. Now, he holds another woman in his arms, repeatedly denouncing me as vicious. Then how could I possibly let them off? That night, the woman's cries in the consort's room lasted all night. The servant who reported back told me that the consort had made her a promise. He said, if the princess's mansion wouldn't accept her, he would take her elsewhere. At that moment, I knew that Xie Yuanchen was truly planning to leave, but my place was never somewhere he could come and go as he pleased. Back then, when Shen Yuan came to the capital seeking refuge with Xie Yuanchen, it took only 1 or 2 encounters for him to develop a sense of affection for her. At that time, Xie Yuanchen tried every means possible but still couldn't get me to agree to let Shen Yuan enter the house as an honored guest. At that time, he got angry with me. Wn Niang and I grew up together. If I really had something with her, would it even be your turn? He earned a slap from me for those words, and for several nights in a row, he left the mansion to drown his sorrows in drink. Shen Yuan took care of him with great tenderness, and as she cared for him, the two of them ended up in bed together. Xie Yuanchen, however, only deceived himself into thinking it was an accident. At that time, his heart was still with me, and because of this, he remained quiet for a long while. But not long after, Shen Yuan appeared before her covered in injuries. When asked what had happened, she only said that she had offended someone important and had been driven out by the relatives she had sought refuge with. Xie Yuanshen's heart wavered the moment he met her gentle, watery gaze. By that day, he had only one thought in mind: to take her away. When he saw the blood continuously flowing from my palm, Xie Yuanshen's gaze faltered for a moment, but then, his expression grew resolute. Yunju, Wn Niang is just a lonely girl. It is you who is pushing her toward death. If you truly have a heart, let me have my way this once. Shen Yuan also raised her head at this moment, crying and pleading with me. If the princess wants the life of a weak woman like me, I will give it. But why must you trouble Xie Lang? We are truly in love. Is that wrong? I could not hear a single word she said. Only at this moment did I realize that Shen Yuan, with her plain clothes and loose hair, bore a slight resemblance to how I looked back then. Seeing this, I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh, a trace of mockery curling at the corner of my lips. As if sensing my thoughts, a flicker of panic crossed Xie Yuanshen's face. He then spoke loudly. Yunju, I no longer wish to dwell on the rights and wrongs of the past. My heart now belongs to Wan Yang. If you can still remember the deep affection we once shared, let us part ways peacefully. Part ways peacefully. I smiled, slowly stepping forward, my palm caressing Xie Yuanshen's jade-like face, leaving a trail of crimson. Only I can grow tired of playing. No one can humiliate me like this. Xie Yuanchen. The next moment, a scream rang out. It was I who snatched the long sword from his hand and, without hesitation, swung it twice, piercing through both his legs. Xie Yuanchen cried out in pain and fell to the ground, while Shen Yuan, standing nearby, instantly felt her legs go weak, collapsing to the floor and trembling like a sieve. The sword's edge continued to drip with fresh blood. I looked at Xie Yuan, my gaze filled with pity. I taught you that a sword is a weapon for killing, not a tool for intimidation. Once you draw it, it must draw blood. Su Yunzhu, you venomous woman. Xie Yuanshen's face turned deathly pale as he trembled and spat out the curse. I stared at him steadily, my tone calm. Xie Yuan, it's not the first day you've known how vicious I am. Yet before, he would simply hold my hand, using a fine silk cloth to wipe away the bloodstains on my hands that had long been washed clean, over and over again. Back then, he said, it's this world that is rotten, forcing you to this point. You've suffered endless bullying since childhood. What's wrong with wanting to protect yourself? Later, it was also him who humiliated me in front of everyone. Do you really have to bully a helpless orphan girl just to find pleasure? Your Highness, my cousin and I were originally innocent. But since you insist on making things difficult for her time and again, I will turn all of this into reality. Xie Yuan was imprisoned by me in the dark room. I went to see him every day, talking to him, yet he never gave me a pleasant look. I don't understand why he only lost his freedom. But I lost my own love, until this day, when I returned from the palace to my residence. My carriage was intercepted by the ever-aloof Grand Tutor. He was a prodigy from a young age, achieving fame early and known for his cold and dignified demeanor. However, from my perspective, he was a bit too rigid in his ways. Back when my elder brother and I attended his lectures, I was frequently punished with the ruler by him. So when he stopped the carriage and mentioned that the consort's relatives hadn't seen him for 10 days, I instinctively thought he was about to lecture me again and irritably prepared to lower the carriage curtain. Yet unexpectedly, a faint glimmer of joy flickered in his usually cold and distant eyes. I rarely saw him smile, but at this moment, the corners of his lips seemed unable to hold back, forcing him to lower his head slightly to conceal his expression. I wish to ask, is it true that the consort has been missing for several days without a trace? Intrigued, I signaled the palace maid to stop lowering the curtain and leaned against the window, casually resting my chin on my hand as I looked at him. Suppose it is true, what would the Grand Tutor do about it? After all, he's entangled with that Shen Yuan. Surely the Grand Tutor wouldn't use this to submit a memorial against me. Would you? The moment I received the affirmative reply, I saw a flash of joy cross Liu Yushen's face. Though it quickly returned to its usual composure, he said, that is truly unfortunate. For the imperial consort to act in such a manner is utterly absurd. If it were I would never make such a mistake. Oh. I raised an eyebrow, a faint smile curling at the corner of my lips as I looked at him. Liu Yushen's cheeks flushed slightly, yet he maintained the dignified demeanor of a gentleman. I recall that Your Highness has always enjoyed playing chess since childhood. I recently acquired a few fine sets of chess pieces and would be so bold as to invite Your Highness to my humble abode for a game. My gaze lingered for a moment on his jade-like, finely sculpted hands with their distinct knuckles. Then I spoke calmly. Granted, that night, I went to visit Xie Yuan as usual. I had set up a red tent for him, and his food, clothing, and daily necessities remained the same as before. The only difference was that his hands and feet were bound by chains, allowing him to move only a few steps. When he saw me arrive, his eyes flashed like lightning, and he shouted at me in anguish, "What right do you have to take away my freedom? I only became a consort, I didn't sell myself to your Su family." I sat on the sandalwood chair opposite him, delicately holding a pastry between my fingers as I listened to his curses. By the end of his tirade, his voice was hoarse, and he spat out bitterly, "How could I have ever loved someone like you?" Those words made me freeze instantly, my hands stopping mid-action. I remembered the past, when the imperial consort dominated the harem, and my royal brother and I struggled to survive in the cold palace. Xie Yuan Chen once pushed through thousands of people to run toward me. At that time, I was bullied and abused daily by the old palace maids. I pretended to comply, but in secret, I was looking for an opportunity to strike, planning to take that old woman's life in one go. It was at this moment that Xie Yuan Chen appeared. He scolded the maid, gave me all the silver he had on him, and later even visited me frequently. Back then, I asked him why he helped me. He stroked my hair and said, "You're so pitiful. If I don't help you, who will?" Because Xie Yuan Chen often came around, I couldn't continue doing those things anymore. I pretended to be well behaved in front of him for a few years, until later, when the crown prince passed away and several princes became more ambitious. To ensure nothing went wrong, they sent many assassins to target my elder brother. To protect him, I no longer concealed my true nature. But Xie Yuan Chen still wouldn't leave me. Back then, his eyes were filled with love, and no matter how I pushed him away, he wouldn't go. When I asked him, he only said, "Yunju, you are different from everyone else. I am destined to love you." Later, to help my elder brother ascend to the throne, the blood on my hands keeps growing. I once thought of letting Xie Yuan Chen go, securing him an official position with a salary of 10,000 bushels, but Xie Yuan Chen refused to leave, saying, "If I go, who will protect you? Yunju, you are so pitiful." I asked him, "I am the Emperor's blade, killing without mercy. Are you afraid of me?" He said, "I'm not afraid." I asked him, "The path I walk is paved with mountains of corpses and seas of blood. If you follow me, you will be implicated. Do you care?" He said, "I don't care." I asked him, "There are countless women in this world. Why do you?" Before I could finish speaking, he pulled me into his embrace. The curtains fluttered, and his voice was as gentle as water as he said, "Yunju, I love you, simply because I love you." I had never before met someone who loved me with such unwavering certainty, and my heart swelled with emotion. But later, he found someone he loved even more. That person was even more fragile and helpless than I had been back then. So Xie Yuan Chen changed his heart, but he refused to admit it, so he dredged up old grievances with me. He found 100 reasons not to love me. I was vicious, I was bloodthirsty, I was domineering. Those things he had long known were used by him as sharp blades, cutting off the path we had traveled together. One slash after another, a bolt of thunder struck, illuminating the face of the person before me with a stark, pale light. I am clad in red, my hands painted with vermilion polish. Gripping his chin before harshly shoving him away, a dull, heavy ache throbs in my chest, and I don't know how to vent my frustration, so I raise the whip and bring it down. The first lash lands on Xie Yuan Chen's body, and I ask him, "Now, do you love me?" He said he didn't love me. With the second and third lashes, he still refused to yield, shouting that his WN Niang was the purest and kindest woman in the world, and that I was not even half as good as her. I didn't understand, clearly. He was the one who had changed his heart, so why could he be so self-righteous? My heart ached unbearably, and I didn't stop striking him, until the final lash. Xie Yuan Chen was beaten nearly unconscious, his lips trembling as he struggled to utter a single word, "Great." That fickle mouth finally stopped saying hurtful things. Xie Yuan Chen. I stood before him, calling his name softly with a touch of sorrow. Back then, if you hadn't insisted on bringing Shen Yuan into the mansion but instead requested a divorce decree, I would have let you go. Why didn't you do that? Thunder rumbled incessantly, and a tear fell from the corner of my eye. The blood-stained whip slipped from my hand. I said, "Xie Yuan Chen, it was you who chose to stay and provoke me, so let us be entangled for a lifetime." When I turned around, the ache in my heart remained. I had lost love, been deceived, and my hand was tired from wielding the whip. There is no woman in the world as pitiful as I am. This melancholy persisted until I played a game of chess with Liu Yushan. He was absent-minded throughout, and his chess skills were far worse than before. Just as I suspected he was deliberately going easy on me, I noticed him staring blankly at my brightly painted red nails. That is the new dye the maid found for me. My nails are full and plump, and with such a color applied. They look like delicate red beans, making my hands appear exceptionally fair. Grand tutor, I call out to him, and he has just snapped back to attention. The next moment, his entire body trembles violently, all because my fingertip gently lands in the palm of his hand, like a dragonfly skimming the water. The touch was fleeting. Propping my cheek on my hand, I leaned closer to him. If you're feeling unwell, Grand Tutor, perhaps you should rest first. A light, shallow breath escaped him. I saw Liu Yushen's eyes, as if soaked in water, clear and gentle, tinged with a hint of shyness. The next moment, he abruptly stood up. He simply said he had a small matter to attend to and asked me to explore on my own for now. His departing figure seemed somewhat hurried, and I too lost my interest. Dismissing the attendants, I strolled through his residence. Liu Yushen's mansion, much like the man himself, was built in a rather rigid and conservative style. Only one warm pavilion, with its terraces and landscaped views, was entirely in the style I loved. As soon as I stepped inside, I immediately heard a series of suppressed, unbearable gasps. A silhouette appeared behind the heavy curtains, and someone called my name in a hoarse voice, the tail end trembling slightly. Princess, Yunju. The breathing grew heavier and heavier, the trembling voice betraying his suppressed emotions. The spring breeze passes, the gauze curtains flutter, after a pool of warm mist dispersed. I saw Liu Yushen's jade-like face, beads of sweat dripped from the tip of his nose, and shimmering ripples danced in his eyes. The one who has always been aloof and ethereal now chants my name, his gaze almost unfocused. He seems to have melted into a pool of water, blending into the warm pool. Merging with my name amid restraint and pleasure, I let out a light chuckle and stepped forward. Liu Yushen froze completely, slowly turning his head around, for the first time. Immense panic appeared in those always calm eyes. Your Highness, don't look at me. He raised his hand, trying to shield himself, his nervous and shy voice hoarse, tinged with a hint of tears. Only at this moment did I realize that the warm chamber was filled with portraits of me. Seeing me examine the portraits, Liu Yushen grew even more despondent. I am guilty, Your Highness, for tarnishing your eyes. His face turned deathly pale, his lips trembling, unable to utter another word. I knelt before him, gently pressing my fingertip to his lips, silencing the rest of his words. Liu Yushen let out a muffled groan, his eyes once again growing unfocused and squinting. I could feel his body beginning to tremble uncontrollably. I asked him, Grand Tutor Liu, do you admire me? With his thoughts exposed, he closed his eyes almost in disgust, a self-mocking smile curling at the corner of his lips. It's my fault for daring to covet the bright moon. Tomorrow, I will go before His Majesty to confess my crime and accept punishment. I gazed at his refined brows and eyes, my fingertips lightly lifting his chin. He tilted his head back in response, his gasps mingling with the misty steam of the warm pool, his Adam's apple bobbing slightly. I examined him with great interest. 3 years ago, His Majesty intended to arrange a marriage for the Grand Tutor, yet you rejected all those noble ladies from prominent families one by one. Could it be that you were waiting for someone in your heart? Since your Highness has already guessed, why ask further? Liu Yushen said, almost shyly turning his face away. I watched his lightly trembling eyelashes and his lips, moistened by the rising steam. A thought stirred in my heart. The next moment, the sound of water splashing echoed. I was in the warm pool, the water flowing gently, warmth spreading through my limbs. I sighed softly. I am kind-hearted and cannot bear to see others suffer. Grand Tutor, let this student help you. Liu Yushen froze completely, struck by immense surprise. He opened his eyes in disbelief, and I saw the red flush at the corners of his eyes, his voice hoarse. Your Highness, are you toying with me? As I spoke, my arm had already wrapped around his neck. And I breathed softly into his ear. I said, I have helped the Grand Tutor, and the Grand Tutor must also repay me well. That day, Liu Yushan held me in his arms, letting out a sigh of satisfaction. He called my name over and over, filled with deep emotion. By the time we were done, the sky had darkened. I changed into my dress in the night and left with a lantern in hand. Liu Yushan knelt before me, holding my foot as he helped me put on my shoes and socks. Then he drew his long sword and without hesitation thrust it toward himself. After I stopped him, he lowered his head and pleaded guilty. Thanks to your Highness for granting me a beautiful dream. My long-cherished wish has been fulfilled. However, offending your Majesty's dignity requires my life as atonement. I, your humble servant, keep that life of yours. I still have use for it, I said, yawning with considerable weariness. Though Liu Yushan appears honest, his abilities are far from small. I am utterly exhausted at the moment and just want to go back quickly to get a good night's sleep. Upon hearing this, he lifted his head and gazed at me with a dazed look. Your Highness, will you come again tomorrow? Of course I will, Lord Liu. We have plenty of time ahead of us. That night, I was so tired that, for once, I didn't go to see Xie Yuanchen. Hearing him ask the guard watching over him, what game is your princess playing? Even if she's playing hard to get, I won't turn back. On the second day and the third day, I didn't go. I was with Liu Yushan, and he taught me again, just as he had when he used to give me lessons, on the desk, in the bookcase, on the chessboard. I was so worn out that I had no energy left to think about Xie Yuanchen. Only occasionally did I hear from his guards that by the fifth day, Xie Yuanchen had fallen silent and stopped making any more threats. On the 10th day, a message came saying that Xie Yuanchen wanted to see me. As soon as I stepped into the cell, I saw his red-rimmed eyes and his stubborn refusal to lower his head. Yunju, since you no longer care for me, why not set me free? Before I could even respond, his pupils trembled slightly as he asked me in disbelief, Yunju, you've taken off the jade pendant I gave you. You never used to part with it. It wasn't until he mentioned it that I realized the jade pendant I had always treasured and kept close had somehow been lost, gone without a trace. So it turns out that changing one's heart is this easy. I, too, am not immune to it. As the thought crossed my mind, I saw Xie Yuanchen turn his head away, his expression pained. Since the token of our love is already lost, there's no need for us to rekindle our past. Su Yunju, even if you beg me in the future, I will never. He hadn't finished speaking when the maid came to inform me that Grand Tutor Liu was waiting for me in the front hall. As we had agreed to go outside the city to fly kites today, Liu Yushan, why is he looking for you? Xie Yuanchen's voice suddenly became flustered. It seemed that only now did he notice that I was dressed more brightly than usual today, with a new jade pendant hanging from my waist, engraved with the Liu family emblem. Why are you carrying his things? Did you throw away the gift I gave you just because you're holding on to what he gave you? Xie Yuanchen's voice carried a tone of disbelief, each question ringing in my ears, leaving me feeling nothing but irritation. A long time ago, he had told me that Liu Yushan looked at me with the wrong kind of eyes, and he deeply disliked that person. Now, bringing it up again, he spoke through gritted teeth, but I only feel annoyed. In the past, I wished I could talk more with Xie Yuanchen. Even seeing him hate me and love me at the same time was a kind of enjoyment. But now, watching him slander another person with such a venomous expression, I just feel that something is off. I turned around and walked toward the door. Xie Yuanchen's voice continued to ring out behind me. You want to use him to provoke me? Su Yunju, if you really go, I will never see you again. The sunlight was just right, and I hurried out to keep my appointment, leaving Xie Yuanchen's voice behind me. The second 10 days, the third 10 days, I never went to see Xie Yuanchen. I go horseback riding with Liu Yushan in the outskirts, or go incognito to investigate the people's conditions. busy all day long. Someone reported that Sis&Even was clamoring to see me. He sent someone to relay a message to me, saying he could have a good talk with me. I'm feeling a bit upset, so I told someone, remove his chains and let the guards be a bit lenient. With his skills, he could disappear without a trace in less than a day. But 3 days later, the guarding soldiers told me that Sis&Even was still in the cell, unwilling to leave. He wants to see me. This time, I went. I appeared before Sis&Even with Liu Yushan, our fingers tightly intertwined. Meeting again, my state of mind was already different. Sis&Even had dressed up meticulously today. His hair was freshly washed and combed, adorned with a white jade hairpin, and he wore a bamboo green robe. I used to love his elegant, scholarly demeanor, and thinking that he loved me too, I felt fortunate. Now I still consider myself fortunate. But it has nothing to do with Sis&Even. Seeing me arrive, he looked up, his eyes red, yet still clinging to his pride. What? I really thought you had the nerve to never see me again. His words were cut off in his throat, all because he saw my hand tightly clasped with Liu Yushan's. Sis&Iven's pupils contracted. Su Yunju, what do you mean by this? With that, he looked up, his eyes fixed on me as if I were the one who had betrayed him, and said, are you using Liu Yushan to provoke me? Come to think of it, Sis&Even and Liu Yushan actually have quite a history of conflict. Sis&Even was born into a marquis's household, enjoying a life of luxury from a young age, with every path to success paved for him without lifting a finger. If not for Liu Yushan, he would have been the most unparalleled young talent of his time. Yet, the world produced such a figure as Liu Yushan, who rose from humble beginnings as a commoner and was a prodigy from a young age. At a tender age, he earned the deep appreciation of the emperor and became the esteemed tutor to the princes and princesses. Such a person would be a legend in any era. Wherever he was, he always overshadowed Sis&Even. In the past, he would also complain in front of me, saying he didn't like Liu Yushan. Everyone says Liu Yushan is a celestial gentleman, unparalleled in the world, yet I only find that man utterly hypocritical. The world sees only his handsome appearance, but they have no idea how profound and deep his heart truly is. At that time, Sis&Even spoke with a youthful indignation that he could never quite hide, his face often tinged with a hint of bitterness. Then, as if finding some psychological compensation, he stepped forward to embrace me, his tone turning tender and coquettish. Fortunately, I have the most precious Yunju in the world. That fellow Liu Yushan can never compare to me in this regard. And now, the intimate posture between me and Liu Yushan has truly driven him to the point of seething with hatred. In the past, I found Sis&Iven's occasional displays of jealousy utterly endearing, thinking it only added to his charm. But looking at him now, I can only see a petty and spiteful demeanor. I looked down at him from above and countered with a question instead of answering. Isn't freedom what you, young Master Xie, desire most? Now that I have found my beloved, I am in a generous mood and have agreed to let you and your dear Niang leave, allowing you two scoundrels to be together. Why are you still unwilling to go? The cold and distant tone was something Sis&Even had only heard before when I was interrogating prisoners under torture. Now, hearing it directed at him, his pupils contracted sharply, yet he still forced himself to speak. Su Yunju, is this a trick of yours to play hard to get? Let me tell you, this time, even if you... I had no time to listen to his idle talk any longer. I turned and walked away, with Liu Yushan following behind me. I heard him turn back and sneer at Sis&Even. The latter couldn't help but lose his composure and tried to rush forward to attack him, but was stopped by the guards. In the chaos, I kicked Sis&Even in the abdomen, causing him to fall backward. Seeing this, Liu Yushan laughed even more mockingly. Young Master Xie truly has no grace at all. Shut up. Sis&Iven's hoarse voice cracked as he glared at Liu Yushan, his eyes wide with fury. I am the esteemed consort of the princess. It is not your place to judge me. Xie Chen. I interrupted him coldly. Hearing me call his name, Xie Chen turned to me with a hopeful look in his eyes. But I did not defend him as he wished. Instead, I shielded Liu Yushan behind me and asked Xie Chen, "Who gave you the audacity to threaten my people in my own residence?" The phrase "my people" seemed to drain the soul from Xie Chen, leaving him utterly disbelieving. That kick was not particularly heavy for him, yet he seemed unable to snap out of it. Sitting slumped on the ground, I paid him no further mind, taking the initiative to lead Liu Yushan out. Upon reaching the entrance of the prison cell, I instructed the guards on either side, "Withdraw all the guards from this area. Just assign someone to keep an eye on him and ensure he doesn't cause trouble in the princess's residence." After saying this, I paused briefly before adding, "I will draft a letter of divorce for him. If he steps out of the dark chamber, hand it to him. After that, whether he leaves with Wn Niang, Yu Niang, or anyone else, it no longer matters." The words reached the darkroom, and Xie Chen stood there in a daze. As I left, I heard his hoarse, low roar, "Su Yunju, how could you really treat me like this? I always keep my word." That very day, 3 letters of divorce were written. I sealed them carefully. One was sent to the Xie family, one to the palace, and one was kept aside, waiting for Xie Chen to take with him when he emerged from the darkroom. But several more days passed, and still there was no news of Xie Chen leaving. On the day the Xie family came knocking, Liu Yushan and I were soaking in the hot spring. He reached out to brush away the damp strands of hair clinging to my neck, his slightly calloused fingertips still gently massaging my shoulder. Within just a few breaths, I heard his breathing deepen and tremble again. The ever-disciplined Grand Tutor now had eyes as deep and unfathomable as a dark pool. I had merely mentioned in passing that I wondered what Xie Chen was like now, and he resorted to all sorts of tricks, tormenting me relentlessly until I had no time to spare a thought for anything else. After he carried me, with my limbs feeling weak and limp, out of the hot spring pool and wiped me clean, the maid who served me finally came forward to report. She said that Shen Yuan had brought a group from the Xie family to demand my return. By the time I arrived at the front hall, the stage was already set. Shen Yuan knelt in the front hall, crying and singing dramatically. After all, the consort is the only son of the Marquis's household. Back then, he chose to marry the princess with such fervor. Even if the princess no longer loves him, she shouldn't humiliate him like this. With every word she spoke, she wept 3 times, her slender frame kneeling on the floor, nearly fainting from the intensity of her sobs. Behind her stood the matriarch of the Xie household, Xie Yuanshan's mother, the woman who had once tried to assert her authority over me as my mother-in-law, only to later avoid me like the plague, wishing to keep me at a distance of 8 feet. At this moment, Lady Xie's expression also seemed rather uneasy. She has always valued her reputation, and Shen Yuan's public disclosure of Xie Yuanshan's imprisonment drew quite a crowd of onlookers. She seemed to feel somewhat embarrassed, yet she couldn't resist Shen Yuan's tearful pleas on the ground, explaining that she had no other choice if the princess's residence hadn't detained him, and with the fate of the consort uncertain, she wouldn't have resorted to such a disgraceful scene. Lady Xie was moved by these words, and it seemed she felt the same way. At this moment, watching me approach calmly, Shen Yuan raised her tear-streaked little face and questioned me repeatedly. "May I ask, Your Highness, does being a princess allow one to treat human life as worthless?" Many noble women had been summoned by Lady Xie to lend support, most of whom were famously fierce matriarchs in the capital, each with a timid and submissive daughter-in-law at home. At this moment, the group whispered among themselves, essentially agreeing with Shen Yuan's words. Since ancient times, it has only been heard of husbands restraining their wives at home, never of wives imprisoning their husbands. Seeing the noble women speak up for her, Shen Yuan straightened her back a little. I then had someone bring over a soft couch and leaned on it, listening to them chatter away. It wasn't until they felt they had wasted too much breath and gradually fell silent, each one focusing their attention on me, that I smiled and asked, looking at Shenyuan, "Miss Shen, tell me, in what capacity are you asking me for someone?" With that one sentence, Shenyuan's face turned pale. She hesitated for a long time before whispering, "Of course, as a member of the Marquis's household." "Oh, that's truly amusing." I leaned my head on my hand and glanced at her. "His surname is Xie, yours is Shin. Xie Yuanshen's parents haven't even spoken yet. But here you are, an outsider, putting on quite the show." Shenyuan's forehead was beaded with fine sweat. In front of so many people, she couldn't possibly reveal her illicit affair with Xie Yuanchen. She could only cast a pleading look toward Xie's mother, who, sensing it, actually stepped forward to intervene. It seems she had harbored resentment against me for a long time. Without any courtesy, she opened her mouth and pointed directly at my nose, saying, "What Yuang said is not wrong at all. My Chenna was raised with the utmost care and luxury at home. Back then, marrying you and giving up his official career was already a grievance. How could we allow you to trample on him now?" After passionately speaking her mind, she thought she would gain support. Unexpectedly, the circle of noble women around her fell silent. Realizing she had spoken out of turn, Lady Xie suddenly turned pale, but I had already taken the initiative to confront her. "Lady Xie, are you saying that your son married this princess?" I leaned forward, looking at her with a leisurely demeanor, yet my tone carried a dangerous edge. If I recall correctly, throughout history, imperial sons-in-law have always been married into the royal family. How bold of your Xie family to dare boast about marrying a princess. As soon as the words fell, attendants on both sides immediately stepped forward to restrain Lady Xie. Humiliated publicly in this manner, she forgot her earlier fear of misspeaking and, in a fit of desperation, lashed out, "You venomous woman, my Xie family defends the Yun dynasty's realm, and you dare abuse your power to bully my son like this." She truly cared for Xie Yuanchen, otherwise, she wouldn't have angrily broken 3 rattan canes upon hearing that Xie Yuanchen was to marry the princess, nor would she have actively facilitated connections between Xie Yuanchen and Shen Yuan upon discovering their mutual interest, repeatedly arranging private meetings for the two and encouraging their illicit affair. In her mind, her son should never have to serve a woman. Although Shen Yuan was lowly, she could serve her son. Which is why she always treated Shen Yuan with a bit more kindness than she did me. Just as Xie's mother was about to utter more reckless words, a powerful slap struck her face, causing her head to snap to the side. "Mrs. Xie," screamed and turned around, but her fury subsided when she saw who it was. The one who struck her was Marquis Xie. A few hours earlier, she had sent for Marquis Xie to back her up, and now Marquis Xie stood before her, his eyes wide with rage as he scolded her. "Foolish woman, are you trying to bring ruin upon the entire Xie clan like this?" After reprimanding her, he turned and knelt before me to plead for mercy. I didn't say much, just had the maid present an imperial edict to him. The imperial edict that Xie Yuanchen knelt and begged for step by step in the Golden Luan Hall that day. I'm afraid everyone has forgotten its contents. I'll trouble Marquis Xie to read it aloud in person. My voice was lazy, but my gaze was cold. Watching Marquis Xie's face turn ugly as he unfolded it, reading word by word until he reached the line, "Once married into the imperial family, one becomes a member of the imperial family. Life and death are determined by the imperial family. If disloyalty arises, 1,000 cuts would not be excessive." After reading it, Marquis Xie seemed as if his backbone had been pulled out. He turned and glared fiercely at Shen Yuan, who was trembling in the corner. It seems they are fully aware of everything Xie Yuanchen and Shen Yuan have done, yet, for the sake of the Marquis's only heir, he still had to muster the courage to beg me, to plead for Xie Yuanchen's release. Upon hearing this, a strange expression crossed my face. "Who said I imprisoned Xie Yuanchen?" I have always allowed him his freedom. It was he who engaged in illicit affairs and refused to leave the princess's residence. These words practically trampled the Xie family's face into the ground. The expressions of the Xie family elders shifted repeatedly, and before they could speak, I struck a pose, urging them to investigate for themselves if they didn't believe me. A crowd of people swarmed to the front of the prison cell. At first, the Xie family, seeing the unattended cell, thought I was playing tricks, but soon, they heard Xie Yuanshen's voice. Hearing the commotion outside, Xie Yuanchen thought it was me coming. His voice, clearly tinged with anger, echoed from the cave. Yunzhu, do you realize your mistake now? I was no longer falling for his tricks and spoke coldly. Xie Yuanchen, get out here, not expecting such an attitude from me. Xie Yuanshen's voice faltered noticeably. Then, a somewhat stubborn voice came from inside. I won't come out. Yunzhu, you're blinded by outsiders now. I'm preserving the last chance for our future. Xie Yuanshen's attitude was clear, and for a moment, all those who had been clamoring that I had detained him fell silent. Only Xie's mother burst into tears. My son, you're confused. Come home with your mother at once. Hearing his mother cry, Xie Yuanshen's voice suddenly grew panicked. Su Yunzhu, what have you done to my mother? As he spoke, he quickly stepped out of the dark room, but just as he was about to take the final step, he retreated under my mocking gaze. Yunzhu, after 3 years of marriage, are you truly going to push me to this point? He said through gritted teeth. Upon hearing this, I simply turned aside and had someone bring up Shen Yuan, who was still weeping and wailing. Cousin, she called out mournfully, and Xie Yuanshen's expression changed in front of everyone. I said, I am granting you, this pair of wild lovebirds, the chance to fly together. Do you truly not want it? He suddenly looked at me as if he didn't know me, staring intently. Yunzhu, why do you have to say such things to provoke me? As he spoke, he seemed to think of something and sneered coldly. With such a domineering personality, who else in this world would be willing to give up everything for you like I have? Could it be that Liu Yushan? Before he could finish his words, he heard a servant come to report. It was said that Grand Tutor Liu Yushan had brought all his wealth to the door, seeking to marry the princess. Upon hearing this, Xie Yuanchen slumped to the ground. Impossible. How could Liu Yushan bear to? He muttered to himself, then snapped back to reality and spoke with indignation. I am still the consort. What right does Liu Yushan have to steal from me? You haven't been for a long time, I said calmly, watching Xie Yuanshen's pitiful state. Whomever I favor is the consort. The imperial decree to dismiss you as consort was issued long ago. Allowing you to leave on your own was the last bit of dignity I granted you. At this moment, Xie Yuanchen finally seemed to have a sudden realization. He rushed over, trying to grab my sleeve, tears falling from the corners of his eyes. Yunzhu, do you truly no longer care for our past? Once, what kind of past? The past where you and Shen Yuan had an affair and got pregnant, then pretended to elope to force a princess to lower her head and allow you to take a concubine. As soon as these words were spoken, the Xie family members present all changed their expressions and began kowtowing one after another. Liu Yushan had now arrived by my side. He looked down at Xie Yuanchen, a pleased smile curling at the corner of his lips. Young Master Xie, thank you for your ingratitude. It gave me the opportunity. Xie Yuanchen finally realized his fear, prostrate on the ground. He clutched at the hem of my skirt, weeping and pleading. Yunzhu, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Please don't abandon me. The abandoned consort could not enter the court, nor could he marry again. That day, Xie Yuanchen was thrown out of the princess's mansion. The Xie family, who had intended to use the pretext of imprisoning someone to denounce me and secure an official position for Xie Yuanchen, gained nothing from their efforts. Xie Yuanchen returned home without bringing Shen Yuan with him. Shen Yuan chased him all the way to the entrance of the Xie residence. But Xie Yuan Chen pointed at her nose and cursed, "You vile woman, if it weren't for your seduction, how could I have lost Yunzhu?" Even Xie's mother, who had always supported Shen Yuan, changed her expression. She kicked Shen Yuan in the stomach, blaming her for spreading false rumors and claiming that Xie Yuan Chen had been imprisoned, which had caused the Xie family to lose face on such a grand scale. The one who refused to leave was Xie Yuan Chen. Unable to vent her anger on him, she placed all the blame on Shen Yuan. As for me, naturally, I couldn't bear to see this once ill-fated couple separated like this. After pleading for an imperial decree to make an exception and grant the marriage, Shen Yuan was finally carried into the Xie residence. However, along with her entry into the Xie residence came certain truths about the false accusations and schemes that Shen Yuan and Xie's mother had orchestrated together. 3 months later, I was playing chess with my royal brother in the palace. The nearby hidden guard smiled as he reported the recent situation at the Xie residence. After Shen Yuan forced her way into marrying Xie Yuan Chen, the two became a resentful couple. Xie Yuan Chen blamed Shen Yuan for deceiving him back then and treated her with nothing but beatings and scoldings. Xie's mother, seizing the opportunity to assert her authority as a mother-in-law, clung to Shen Yuan and refused to let go. The mournful sound of her weeping could often be heard in the Marquis's residence at night, but Shen Yuan's methods back then weren't exactly sophisticated, and Xie Yuan Chen might not have been unable to see through them at the time. It's just a convenient excuse to justify one's inability to control their baser instincts, and even an attempt to use such matters as leverage to manipulate me. After the black piece was placed, my elder brother smiled and said, "The joke ends here. Don't wait for them to come to their senses and turn against their master." Upon hearing this, I glanced to the side and signaled, "Find an opportunity to give it to her, but don't let her notice." Someone immediately understood and left. Carrying the bottle of deadly poison, "I've handed you the knife. How far you can go with it depends entirely on Shen Yuan's abilities." After that day's match, I asked my brother if he resented me for causing him so much trouble. Upon hearing this, my brother simply laughed heartily. He said, "Yunzhu, you are a princess. As long as I remain in this position, you can stir up as much trouble as you like." After hearing this, I smiled at him. Perhaps my elder brother would be even more pleased if I were more outrageous. After all, we are no longer children. In the emotions of adults, one must always offer some leverage to ensure stability. 3 days later, tragic news came from the Xie residence. The entire Xie family had been poisoned to death, and the 3 members of the Xie family died in an extremely horrifying manner, clearly having suffered immense torment before their deaths. The murderer, Shen Yuan, also drowned herself in a lake shortly afterward. The wealth that the Xie family had embezzled over several generations was thus confiscated by the state. On the day I returned from confiscating the Xie family's property, Liu Yushan lay by my bedside, his jade-white fingertips twirled around my hair, his eyes lowered. Long before this, he had already offered all his possessions, asking me for a title. This is the second time he has brought it up. I smiled and raised my hand, tracing his delicate brows and eyes with my fingertips. "Of course, but remember, if you fail to please me, I can replace you at any time." In that moment, his eyes seemed to light up with stars. Liu Yushan held my hand just like that and gently placed a kiss on my fingertips. That goes without saying. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I am getting married, yet my childhood sweetheart and fiancé remained completely unaware. His heart was entirely captivated by my cousin. Always aloof, he would become endlessly talkative whenever he saw her. To win a smile from her, he gathered a group of young nobles and ladies to play polo with her. The polo field was dusty, but I forgot I had asthma. After being treated by dozens of renowned doctors, I finally opened my eyes. The first thing I did after waking up was to write a letter to my parents. Father, Mother, I am willing to marry into the Duke's household. 3 days later, I have received a reply from my parents. The general content of the letter is, the Duke's residence will come to propose marriage immediately, and the wedding can take place next month. The people sent to fetch me are already on the way, based on the time the letter was sent. I roughly estimate that it will take about 7 days for those sent to fetch me to arrive in Qingju. My maid, Tsueyu, is also happy for me. Tsueyu feels that Lord Xie never really liked you that much, but the heir of the Duke's residence has always been thinking of you. Although getting married next month is a bit rushed, it is indeed an auspicious time. Everyone tells me that Xie Huaijin doesn't like me that much. Only I have been obsessed with his promises all along. Alright, then take your time packing up, and we'll leave when the time comes. Xie Huaijin suddenly walked up behind me, the cold aura surrounding him making me uncomfortable. Only upon hearing the word go did a ripple of emotion appear on his face. He hurriedly asked, Go, where are you going? As he spoke, he leaned over to look at the letter in my hand, and I immediately closed it. Xie Huaijin's previously bewildered expression instantly turned icy. I instinctively hid the letter behind my back, meeting his sinister gaze. Just then, a servant suddenly ran to the corridor. Young master. Me.So accidentally cut her finger while cleaning her knife and is bleeding heavily. Please go back and check on her. Xie Huaijin's expression stiffened, his eyes filled with unease. He turned and strode quickly outside, asking the servant as he walked, Has the wound been bandaged? Has a doctor been called? Never mind. I'd better go and see for myself. Stepping out of the room, he instantly forgot my words. His resolute footsteps were just like those on the polo field. He left me behind once again. After he left, I began to pack my own belongings. Opening the makeup box, I found a jade pendant lying quietly inside. Xie Huaijin and I grew up together in the capital. 5 years ago, I was sent to my maternal grandparents' home in Qingju to recuperate from an illness. Later, Xie Huaijin happened to be appointed as an official in Qingju. We made a verbal promise to spend our lives together upon reuniting, but we didn't inform our parents. This jade pendant is the token of love he gave me. It's a family heirloom of his, and he said it suited me well, so he gave it to me. Later, I learned from others that this was something his family specifically gave to their daughter-in-law. At that time, I was both angry and embarrassed, but I couldn't hide the secret joy in my heart. I used to treasure it immensely, but now it seems less important to me. Closing the makeup box, I continued to pack up the other things. Inside the sandalwood carved box lay Xie Huaijin's cloak. When I first arrived at my maternal grandfather's house, I got into an argument with my cousin and declared that I would walk back to the capital. That very night, I ran away from home. I was so exhausted from walking that my asthma flared up. It was Xie Huaijin who found me at the critical moment, wrapped me in his cloak, and took me home to treat me. I will never forget the feeling of happiness sitting in his arms, longing to marry him. But for 3 years, he has never mentioned marriage. As a woman, it's even harder for me to bring it up, so we've been stuck in this stalemate. Just like this cloak, I don't know if he left it with me or gave it to me, but it's okay, I don't need it now. After closing the box, I tidied up other areas. In the evening, I went to my grandparents' courtyard to bid them farewell. Having lived with them for 5 years, I had already developed a deep bond with them. How could I just leave like that? As soon as I reached the courtyard gate, I saw Xie Huaijin and Su Wanwan walking arm in arm, looking every bit like a loving couple. Upon seeing me, Xie Huaijin quickly withdrew his hand. He seemed momentarily flustered but soon regained his composure, explaining to me, It's dark, and I was worried something might happen to Wanwan, so I made sure to see her back. I let out an "oh" and stepped forward to enter the courtyard. At that moment, I heard Xie Huaijin ask again, Have you come to pay your respects to Master Su and Madam Su? I turned my face to look at him. He was really talkative tonight. Xie Huijin guiltily turned his face away, and Su Wanwan, standing beside him, spoke up. Cousin, don't be angry. Our Jin and I are like brothers. He's always treated me as one of the guys. Please don't overthink it. I ignored Su Wanwan and turned to leave. Then I heard Su Wanwan's voice again. Cousin, aren't you going to pay respects to grandfather and grandmother? Without looking back, I said, I'm tired. At this moment, I changed my mind. Saying goodbye to my maternal grandfather and the others isn't something that needs to be rushed. As for Xie Huijin, I have no intention of telling him at all. After walking a few steps forward, I heard Xie Huijin comforting Su Wanwan from behind. Wanwan, don't take it to heart. She's just that kind of petty person, not as generous as you. Su Wanwan replied very cheerfully, it's fine, we're best buddies. Your woman is my woman too. After saying that, he burst into laughter. I felt nauseated and quickened my pace back to my own courtyard. Tsueyu said angrily, Pa, what cousin? A bastard born to a singing girl is worthy of being a member of the Su family. I glanced at her and said, don't say such things carelessly. Just keep it to yourself. Su Wanwan was born to a concubine and only returned to the Su family in the past 2 years. Yet, as soon as she came back, Xie Huijin was drawn to her. He said she had a bold and straightforward personality, and being with her didn't feel so exhausting. In other words, being with me was tiring for him. Tsueyu nodded, but still looked unconvinced. But, miss, are you really willing to just give up Mr. Xie to her? I saw it clearly just now. That woman was pressing herself right against him. It was absolutely disgusting. As she spoke, she pointed to her own chest. I replied calmly, what good would it do to be unwilling? How could we possibly want a man who's so tainted? Tsueyu suddenly understood. Oh, you're right, miss, you're truly wise. I also vaguely understood why Xie Huijin was so infatuated with Su Wanwan. So, he likes this kind of woman. Whoever wants to do it can do it. Anyway, I can't do it. Early the next morning, I went to pay my respects to my maternal grandfather and grandmother. As I approached their courtyard, I saw Su Wanwan again. She swaggered up to me, raised her hand, and punched my shoulder. Good morning, cousin. Su Wanwan came from a humble background, so she was stronger than most women. Plus, her temperament wasn't very steady, and she often didn't know her own strength. That punch nearly broke my bones, and I winced in pain. Su Wanwan sneered disdainfully. Seriously, sis? I barely touched you. Do you have to be so dramatic? With that, she immediately let go of me. Forget it, forget it. Good thing I never hang out with women so delicate and overly sensitive. I covered my shoulder with my hand, while Tsueyu beside me stomped her feet in anger. How could she do that? I'm going to tell the master and the mistress. I shook my head. Forget it. They are old, and besides, why make them choose between a granddaughter and a granddaughter-in-law? When I first entered my grandfather's courtyard, I heard his scolding voice, and then Su Wanwan stormed out angrily. I served my grandfather and grandmother tea, feeling a sharp pain in my shoulder, so I hurried back to my courtyard to take off my clothes. Tsueyu stomped her foot angrily. Oh dear, it's all bruised. Did Miss Su do this on purpose? She applied ointment to me angrily and was about to help me put on my clothes when we heard a series of hurried footsteps. At the moment the intruder barged in, Tsueyu wrapped me tightly in the clothes. Xie Huijin pointed at me angrily with his finger. Wanwan only gave you a little push. Do you really have to pretend to be so fragile? You're so useless, yet you still went to complain to Master Su and Madam Su. Don't you feel ashamed at all? You used to be so understanding, but now you've become like this, so scheming. I really misjudged you. With that, he turned and left. Tsueyu wanted to chase after her to complain, but I immediately called her back. Forget it. She turned around, stomping her feet in frustration. Why should we let it go? How can she bully people like that, first hitting you and then turning around to slander you? It's just too much. I sighed softly and tried to soothe her in a low voice. Su-Won is indeed cunning. She was the one who started it, yet she turned around and blamed me. But no matter how many schemes she has, I can't be bothered to fight with her. After all, I'm leaving soon. Evening, after my afternoon nap, I went for a stroll in the garden with Tsueyu. As I passed by Su-Won's courtyard, I heard a commotion inside. I had originally intended to leave directly, but upon hearing my name mentioned, I couldn't help but stop. It's so much more enjoyable to be with Sister Wonwan. Sister Qianyu is too reserved. There are some things you simply can't say in front of her. Exactly. It's perfectly normal for men to speak a little crudely, that's just masculinity, and she just doesn't get it. In my opinion, our master is most suited to be with Sister Wonwan. Only such a woman is worthy of him. I did not disturb them. Instead, I took Tsueyu and left directly. Before Su-Wonwan returned to the Su family, it was always me who took care of his brothers. Before this, he generously introduced me in front of his brothers. These people used to tease me by calling me sister-in-law. Xie Huijin smiled and tacitly agreed, often asking them about the preferences of young ladies. Everyone assumed that he and I would be husband and wife in the future, and I genuinely regarded them as friends, which is why I stopped their inappropriate words and actions. After all, following Xie Huijin in the future means undertaking great endeavors, and the crude words and actions of those around him will ultimately reflect on him. But now, Su-Wonwan has arrived. They appreciate her tolerance of them and even see their crude jokes as a display of masculinity. Even Xie Huijin has started speaking in such vulgar language. Later on, there was a time when Su-Wonwan made a lewd remark in public. Someone spoke up to stop her, saying they didn't like hearing such things, and that person ended up being ostracized. It was only because I asked my uncle to pull some strings and have him transferred to another office that he wasn't given a hard time over the long run. I continued packing my things. Tsueyu took out a brand new brocade robe from a Huanghuali box. The bamboo pattern on it was embroidered stitch by stitch with my own hands. I traced the patterns with my fingertips, feeling a mix of emotions in my heart. This robe was made by me personally for Xie Hongyi before the last polo match. I originally planned to give it to him on his birthday. My needlework isn't very good, and to make this robe perfect, my hands were pricked so much they looked like sieves. But I never complained once. However, I think he no longer needs it now. I asked Tsueyu to prepare a brazier and threw it into the fire. The raging flames slowly consumed the garment I had painstakingly made, yet I felt no sorrow at all. Instead, a sense of liberation washed over me. Xie Huijin stepped into my courtyard and immediately caught sight of the scene. He walked over and asked, "Yeah, what are you burning?" Without looking up, I replied, "Just some useless trash." Xie Huijin nodded, pulling me back a step. "Don't stand so close, you might get burned." I turned to look at him, surprised by his unusual attentiveness. "By the way, didn't you say you'd have a surprise for me this month?" Xie Huijin tilted his head and asked. I glanced at the brazier, a mocking smile curling at the corner of my mouth. "The month isn't over yet. What's the rush?" Xie Huijin nodded and said, "Then I'll give you a surprise." "Okay." I looked at him in confusion, suddenly feeling a slight coolness on my wrist. Looking down, I saw Xie Huijin slipping a bracelet onto my hand. The translucent, pale bracelet was of excellent quality, clearly showing his thoughtfulness. He asked with a smile in his eyes, "Do you like it?" In the past, I would have been overjoyed to tears. It's not about how valuable the bracelet is, but that I would love anything he gave me. But now, I just nodded. In the firelight, he seemed to notice that I was somewhat displeased. He immediately showed dissatisfaction. "Are you mute? Can't you speak? If you don't like it, just throw it away. Why pretend to be so affected?" I frowned, lowering my head. I was just about to take off the bracelet when I saw Su-Wonwan approaching. She stepped forward and handed the envelope in her hand to Sis&Even. Here, I just ran into your servant outside. Hurry and see what your family has written to you. Sis&Even nodded and reached out to take the letter, a letter from home. Why would a letter from the Sis family arrive at this moment? The Sis family has dealings with the Duke's residence, so they will likely inform him about the marriage between the Duke's residence and our Lin family. Then he will know everything. Not good. My heart tightened, but I saw Sis&Even open the envelope. Watching as he took the letter out of the envelope and unfolded it, my heart instantly leaped into my throat. I swallowed hard, watching Sis&Even carefully reading the words on the letter. Su-Won also leaned in, habitually raising her hand to rest on his shoulder. Sis&Even glanced back at her, momentarily losing his grip on the letter in his hand. The papers slipped from his fingers and fell directly into the brazier. The flames in the brazier, not yet fully extinguished, immediately flared up, turning the letter to ashes in an instant. Sis&Even stared at the ashes in astonishment, completely unprepared for such an outcome. I hadn't expected it either and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. However, Sis&Even looked at me, his eyes showing impatience. You insisted on burning something right now, and now look, I didn't even get a chance to see what was written in the letter. I was somewhat surprised. It was clearly Su-Won who bumped into him, and he couldn't hold it steady himself. How could he blame her for that? I couldn't help but glance at Su-Won. Su-Won quickly apologized. Jin, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that just now. I was just so happy to see that you received a letter from home that I lost my composure for a moment. The anger in Sis&Even's eyes immediately dissipated. He spoke to Su-Won very gently. It's all right, you didn't do it on purpose. Watching them care for each other, I suddenly found it laughable. Su-Won did something wrong, but in his eyes, it was just a matter of personality. It seems he really likes her. I couldn't help but smile bitterly. Yet, Sis&Even couldn't help but glare at me. What are you laughing at? Won did make a mistake. But she's straightforward and has no ulterior motives. If it weren't for this brazier being placed here, at most, it would have just fallen to the ground. He was quite displeased. Clutching the empty envelope before promptly tossing it into the brazier. What a disappointment. After saying that, he turned and left. Watching his retreating figure, I realized the distance between Sis&Even and me was growing ever wider. If that's the case, then parting won't be so painful. Early morning, I went to my maternal grandparents' courtyard again to take care of them. After coming out, I happened to run into Su-Won again. She greeted me with a smile, but I took several steps back. Whether she meant it or not, I couldn't let myself be hurt by her again. Su-Won smiled, her eyes fixed on my wrist. It seems my cousin really likes this bracelet. I instinctively hid my hands behind my back, looking at her with hostile eyes. Su-Won gazed at me. Sister, why look at me with such eyes? As if I could devour you. I smiled in response. You certainly can't devour me, but you devour everything. Such an appetite is something I don't have. With that, I turned and walked away. Yet I heard Su-Won speak again. I knew it. The bracelet I personally picked. Cousin, you would definitely like it. My heart immediately skipped a beat, and I instinctively turned to look at her. Just in time, I met her provocative gaze. I lowered my head to look at the bracelet on my hand, feeling only that its color was disgusting. Quickly pulling off the bracelet, I flung it violently to the ground. With a clatter sound, the bracelet shattered into several pieces. This scene happened to be witnessed by Sis&Even, who was passing by. He rushed over quickly, his eyes instantly turning icy as he stared at the fragments scattered all over the floor. Lin Qianyu, are you crazy? Won and I went to over a dozen shops to carefully pick this out for you. You don't have to thank me. But Won hasn't done anything to offend you, right? Is it really necessary to throw such a tantrum? Besides, even if Won speaks too bluntly, have you ever considered your own issues? It takes two to tango. With that, he stormed off. wrapping his arm around Su Wanwan as if in a huff. Su Wanwan spoke up to persuade him. Forget it, cousin didn't mean it, that's just her personality, I don't mind. Xie Huaijin stopped in his tracks and said without looking back, I really regret knowing such a petty woman, she will never compare to you. Wanwan, let me take you to stay at my place for a few days. So you don't have to put up with this woman's nonsense at home. After saying that, he turned and walked away, watching his receding figure. His words from just moments ago echoed in my mind. Strange, even though those words were so hurtful, I didn't feel the slightest bit of sadness. Perhaps I had already been hurt so deeply by him that I no longer knew what pain felt like. I stood in place for a moment, then turned back to look at Tsueyu, whose eyes were full of heartache. How many days are left? Tsueyu counted on her fingers and said, There are 3 days left. I nodded. All right, I understand. The packing was almost done. For the remaining 3 days, I would spend quality time with my grandfather and grandmother, accompanied by Daekwi. I have already told them about my upcoming marriage, and they were very happy to hear it. After all, I am already 18 years old, which is the right age to get married. They agreed to go to the capital with me to witness my wedding. 3 days later, the mother who came to pick me up arrived on time. Originally, my uncle wanted to go to the Xie family to bring Su Wanwan to the capital together. The whole family unanimously agreed that she was too boisterous. In a place like the capital, where there are many high-ranking officials and nobles, if she were to offend someone, the entire family would suffer. It would be better to let her stay in Qingju. I sat in the carriage on the way home, happily snuggling in my grandmother's arms. Meanwhile, Xie Huaijin was still laughing and playing with Su Wanwan. They went hunting and horse racing outside the city, had vegetarian meals at a temple in the mountains, and even organized another polo match. On the field, everyone was very happy, because this time, there was no interruption to their passion for polo. Without me, I would have dampened their spirits. I still admire Sister Wanwan in this polo match. Her skills were truly impressive. Don't call me Sister Wanwan. You should call me sister-in-law. A woman like this is a perfect match for our Lord. That's right, call her sister-in-law. Don't call her Sister Wanwan, it's disrespectful. Amid their teasing, everyone started calling Su Wanwan sister-in-law. Su Wanwan, as bold and straightforward as ever, said, What sister-in-law? Stop talking nonsense. Call me brother. I wouldn't even mind if you called me dad. The crowd burst into laughter. Only Xie Huaijin frowned. After the laughter gradually subsided, he said with a serious expression, Wanwan is not yet married. Speaking like this damages her reputation. Address her as you should, and stop shouting nonsense. Everyone exchanged glances and nodded in agreement. Su Wanwan's originally indifferent expression turned slightly displeased. She had clearly managed to make Xie Huaijin treat her as unique, so why was he still unwilling to give her a proper status? She knew all too well that her mother's background was too lowly. If it weren't for the kindness of Master Su and Madam Su, she would never have been able to enter this household. But even after entering the Su family, what difference did it make? Those who looked down on her still looked down on her. So she put on a carefree demeanor, pretending not to play with those girls, but instead choosing to be with equally rough and careless men. Xie Huaijin comes from a prestigious family, is ambitious, and has a strong sense of independence, someone you can entrust your life to. But he is just too cold. However, such a person is actually quite easy to handle. I thought I could make him develop romantic feelings for me, but that goal is too far-fetched. After a moment of silence, Su Wanwan heard Xie Huaijin step forward and say, It's getting dark soon. Let me take you back to the Su family. She couldn't help but shake her head. She didn't want to go back just yet, and she especially didn't want Xie Huaijin to see her again. But Xie Huaijin insisted, No, I'm afraid Master Su and Madam Su will worry if you're away from home for too long. Su Wanwan lowered her head. She sighed and said, After all that talk, Jin, you still look down on me. Xie Huijin was surprised. Why would you say that? Su Wanwan looked up at him. You always say you treat me like a brother, but after finally getting out for a trip, my father, grandfather, and grandmother didn't even come looking for me, yet you're in such a hurry to send me away. Don't think I don't know, you just want to see my cousin. Putting romance before friendship, Xie Huijin's true intentions were exposed. He quickly spoke up to cover it. Don't talk nonsense. I'm really just worried about you. After hesitating for a moment, he changed his tune. All right then, I'll take you to stay at the Cheng family manor for a few more days. They happen to be holding a sacrificial ceremony, and there are lots of fun things to do. However, you must return home as soon as the Cheng family village sacrifice is over. Su Wanwan smiled. This was exactly what she wanted, so she picked up the reins and followed behind Xie Huijin. A group of people stirred up billowing smoke as they rushed toward Changjia village. A few days later, they left and headed toward the Su family. Just as their group arrived at the Su residence gate, after dismounting, Xie Huijin personally escorted Su Wanwan into the mansion. The entire Su family had all rushed to the capital to attend my wedding banquet, leaving only my cousins and a group of servants behind. Su Wanwan was stunned. She had only been away from home for a few days. And yet her entire family had gone to the capital, which filled her with uncontrollable anger. Even if she is not favored and comes from a humble background, she shouldn't be treated this way. However, the maid's next words made her feel a surge of joy. Don't be upset, miss. The master and the old mistress went together to see the cousin off for her wedding. Weren't you the one who disliked her the most? Su Wanwan was momentarily stunned. I'm getting married, but the groom is someone else. This is a joyous occasion. Su Wanwan couldn't help but laugh. The maid added, I'm glad you're not angry, miss. You are truly generous, something that Miss Cousin could never match. Su Wanwan had no interest in listening to the maid's flattery and turned to go find Xie Huijin. He must have gone to the courtyard where I used to live. At this moment, Xie Huijin stood in the empty courtyard, stunned. He never expected that I would leave without saying goodbye, not even leaving a single letter behind. Even the servants repeatedly explained, Lord Xie, Miss Lin truly left nothing behind. If you don't believe it, you can go inside and see for yourself. Xie Huijin immediately stepped into the room. The familiar layout lacked vitality, completely devoid of the liveliness from the days when I was here. He glanced around and headed straight for the desk. In the past, I would paint at the desk or sit there embroidering and making clothes. Today happened to be the last day of the month. Is this the surprise I gave him? Xie Huijin couldn't understand why I would leave just like that, without even leaving a word behind. He frowned. He just couldn't figure it out. After a moment, as if remembering something, he got up and walked to the dressing table, pulling open the jewelry box. Inside, the jade pendant still lay. I didn't take the token of affection he gave me. This means I have already given up on this relationship. This can't be. It's impossible. Xie Huijin tightly gripped the jade pendant, mumbling under his breath. At that moment, the little maid who had served me entered the room. She didn't notice Xie Huijin's presence and started chatting with another maid. Will Miss Lin ever come back? A good mistress like her is probably impossible to find again. Yes. She is not only a good mistress but also a good daughter-in-law. Didn't you see the brocade robe she personally made for Lord Xie? The bamboo pattern on it is so lifelike. It's a shame it was burned, such a carefully made garment. Alas, upon hearing the little maid's words, Xie Huijin rushed out quickly. He stepped forward, grabbing them and asking, What were you just saying? What brocade robe? The little girl was terrified and timidly replied, In reply to Lord Xie, Miss Lin made a robe for you 2 months ago. A few days ago, she suddenly took it out and burned it, but we don't know why she would burn it for no reason. Xie Huijin's face instantly turned as pale as paper. The hand holding the jade pendant trembled incessantly. His prominent Adam's apple bobbed up and down, and he asked again, Where on earth has she gone? The two young maids exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with surprise. Does Lord Xie not know? They all knew that Xie Huijin and I were close, so it was impossible for me to leave without telling him. Seeing Xie Huijin shake his head, one of the young maids then said, Miss Lin has returned to the capital to get married. The wedding is scheduled for next month, and our master and mistress have also gone to attend the ceremony. The little girl's words struck like a bolt from the blue. Xie Huijin, who had been standing tall and straight, staggered backward as if a great building were collapsing. Fortunately, the two little girls were quick-witted and rushed forward to support him, preventing him from falling. Seeing his face turn pale and filled with worry, they asked, Lord Xie, are you all right? Should we fetch a doctor for you?
I couldn't see the other person's face clearly, only sensing that he was tall and likely a decent man. I boarded the bridal sedan, accompanied by the sounds of music and celebration along the way, and soon arrived at the Duke of Mu's residence. With the support of the heir, Song Yunze, I stepped out of the bridal sedan, crossed the fire basin and saddle, and entered the courtyard of the Duke's residence. Amidst the crowd of guests, I made my way to the main hall. After paying respects to heaven and earth, I entered the bridal chamber with Song Yunze, where we untied our hair ribbons and tied them together, then drank the nuptial wine. After that, he was pulled away to entertain the guests. In the bridal chamber, I wasn't exactly idle either. From time to time, someone would bring in snacks, fruits, and other treats, and Sueyu kept me company with conversation to pass the time. Soon enough, the guests had all dispersed. Song Yunze entered the bridal chamber, and Sueyu withdrew. Only he and I remained in the room. I felt a bit nervous. Lowering my head and staying silent, he walked over and sat by the bedside, saying to me, Don't be afraid, although this is the Duke's residence, there are no strict rules here. Just relax. I kept my head down, not daring to look at him, and answered softly, Yes. The lamp was extinguished, the candles were snuffed out, and my clothes slipped off. But I never dared to look at him, and so, we spent 3 days in silence, and I only breathed a sigh of relief on the day we returned to my family home. However, during these 3 days, I also discovered that he was a gentle and refined gentleman, taking care of me in every way. Especially knowing that I have asthma, he even ordered the servants to always sprinkle water before sweeping. I told him I was already better, but he still insisted on doing this. Not only that, but also in daily diet and daily life, everything had to take my asthma into account. I was very happy on the day of returning home. My maternal grandparents gave us red envelopes. As evening fell, Song Yunze left, saying he would come to pick me up in 3 days. A group of people saw him off at the gate. My grandfather gave everyone a meaningful glance. And soon only Song Yunze and I were left in front of the mansion. I was a bit puzzled and asked him, Why aren't you leaving yet? Song Yunze looked at me with reluctance in his eyes. I'll come to pick you up in 3 days. I laughed. You just said it. I remember. His eyes never left me for a moment. Then I'll go. I looked at him, and for a moment, I felt my heart pounding wildly. He's actually quite nice. Watching him leave, I didn't turn to enter the Lin residence until the carriage had disappeared from sight. At that moment, I heard a familiar voice. Yeah. My heart couldn't help but skip a beat. It's Xie Huijin. Looking back, I saw Xie Huijin, who had become dark and thin, looking disheveled, with Su Wanwan, equally disheveled, by his side. I never expected that in just 1 month, he would become so haggard. Xie Huijin stood there, staring at me in a daze. The elaborate high bun on my head is quite conspicuous, and the jewels adorning my hair signify that I have married into a prominent family. He strode toward me, grabbed my arm, and demanded, Why? I struggled to break free but couldn't, so I retorted, Why what? Xie Huijin looked furious as he asked, I'm asking why you suddenly got married. Why are you playing dumb? I smiled slightly. Why do I need your permission to marry someone? Who are you to me? Xie Huijin sneered. What do you think? You said you would marry no one but me in this lifetime, and that you would spend your life with me, yet now you're pretending to know nothing. Lin Qianyu, you're truly cunning. I could only smile bitterly in resignation. He's still so full of himself. In his eyes, I am just that kind of woman. I looked up at him and said solemnly, yes, I am scheming. I believed your words, thinking you truly loved me, only to end up with nothing. Sis&Even frowned. How am I not truly in love with you? If I didn't love you, I would have married someone else long ago. I snorted coldly, not responding to his words. He explained to me again, the reason I haven't told you all along is that I wanted to give you a surprise after returning to the capital. My feelings for you are genuine. If you truly had genuine feelings, how could you allow others to sleep by your side? I retorted. Sis&Even was momentarily stunned, lowering his head without a word. My gaze involuntarily turned to Su-Won beside me. Su-Won immediately explained, cousin, why don't you believe a jinn? And what do you mean by looking at me? You couldn't possibly suspect me, could you? As she spoke, she let out a very disdainful laugh. If there were anything between me and a jinn, it wouldn't be your turn. Why are you so suspicious? I looked at her with contempt and said coldly, isn't it because you're not beautiful enough for him to take a liking to you? As soon as the words fell, Su-Won's face instantly flushed red. She gritted her teeth and said, cousin, how can you say that? I gave her a sidelong glance, didn't even look at Sis&Even, and turned to enter the Lin residence. The next day, I went out for a stroll with my sister-in-law and a few cousins, and on our way back, I saw Sis&Even again. After returning to the residence with them, I quietly went to the side gate to see him. Why haven't you left yet? As soon as I saw him, I immediately asked. Sis&Even had dark circles under his eyes, so he must not have slept well last night. He said to me, yeah, I was wrong. Can you forgive me? I frowned and said, I don't understand what you're talking about. Sis&Even's eyes instantly reddened. He explained, I know that no matter what I say now, you won't believe me, but I truly only want what's best for our future. Right now, I'm just a lowly county magistrate, and you come from a prominent family. I don't want you to suffer alongside me. I found it laughable. Under the guise of doing what's best for me, you've made me suffer endless grievances. In truth, he wasn't doing it for me at all. He was clearly doing it for himself. I looked at him, the mockery in my eyes unmistakable. For my own good. You embraced Su-Won. For my own good. You forced me to accompany her to play polo, completely forgetting about my asthma. For my own good. You listened to Su-Won's words and blamed me. If this is what you call for my own good, then please stay away from me from now on. That would truly be for my own good. I didn't want to waste any more words on him, so I turned and entered the mansion gate. At that moment, he spoke up again. Yeah, I'm sincere. I truly care for you. I remember every little moment between us. Please give me a chance. Without looking back, I said coldly, I'm sorry, but I am now the wife of the heir to the Duke of Me's estate, a married woman. I hope you won't disturb me, or I can't guarantee that the Duke of Me won't cause trouble for you. However, Sis&Even was not deterred by my words. He instead said to me, do you think it's so easy to stay in the Duke's mansion? Is Song-Yunza so eager to marry you because he truly loves you? I didn't take his words seriously and stepped through the side door. It wasn't until the third day, when Song-Yunza came to take me home, that I remembered Sis&Even's words again. Indeed. From the betrothal to the wedding, it took less than a month. He and I became husband and wife. Is he so eager to marry me because he has some hidden ailment? A few days into our marriage, I discovered that he is in excellent health. Then it must be something unspeakable. In the carriage, I heard Song-Yunza call my name. He asked me, you've been down ever since we left the Lin family. Are you feeling unwell somewhere? Seeing the concern on his face, I hesitated for a moment before asking. Why did you marry me? Song-Yunza was taken aback for a moment. He stared at me blankly for a while before snapping out of it. His eyes flickered slightly as he said, I'll tell you when we get home. As he spoke, he reached out to take my hand. I did not offer him my hand. Instead, I shifted back slightly. Now I cannot be sure if my guess is correct, but his silence worries me a little. He hesitated for a moment before withdrawing his hand, the disappointment in his eyes clearly visible. We returned to the Duke's mansion in this awkward silence. Song-Yunza dropped me off at the courtyard and left. He didn't say a word, yet it felt like he had said so much. I was very flustered, not sure if I had hit a nerve with his concerns, but he flew into a rage out of embarrassment. As for my future days, I dared not think further. Just as I was feeling troubled, Song Yoonsa came over carrying a pile of things. I looked over and saw it was a stack of letters. I couldn't help but ask, "What is this?" Song Yoonsa pulled out a letter from the very edge and handed it to me. The envelope was old, looking like it had been around for many years. I tore open the envelope, took out the yellowed letter paper, and looked at the words on it, then couldn't help but glance at Song Yoonsa. "Is this for me?" Song Yoonsa's shy face flushed slightly. He pursed his lips and nodded, whispering, 5 years ago, when you returned to the capital for the new year, we met at the Lantern Festival. I've liked you for 5 years. I casually took out another letter, opened it, and saw it was also addressed to me. Looking at the pile of letters in front of me, I asked him in astonishment, "Are all of these written to me?" Song Yoonsa nodded. This surprised me. I never expected that I would have a man thinking about me for such a long time. Looking at him again, I took the initiative to hold his hand. "You don't have to work so hard anymore." Song Yoonsa held me in his arms and whispered in my ear, "When I found out you were willing to marry me, it felt like a dream. And even now, I still feel like I'm in a dream." I lifted my head and rubbed my hair against his tall, straight nose. "Then you should wake up quickly, so you'll know we're both real." Song Yoonsa took my hand and kissed it, his eyes filled with adoration. In the evening, we didn't have dinner at the Duke's residence. Song Yoonsa took me to a restaurant for a meal. I stood by the railing, happily watching the fireworks fill the sky. Song Yoonsa walked over and wrapped his arms around my waist from behind. I turned my face to look at him. He was smiling at me, and I couldn't help but smile back. Little did I know, Sis&Even was watching me from downstairs. He never expected that I would be so cold to him. He began to regret his actions in Chingju. He thought that by apologizing to me, I would change my mind, but I left so resolutely. He gave up completely. My mind began to grow restless. The whole person became muddled and confused. He looked at me nestled in Song Yoonsa's arms. My eyes filled with happiness, and instantly understood that he and I could never be together again. At that moment, a familiar scream made him involuntarily look over. A woman dressed in luxurious clothes and adorned with beautiful accessories ordered someone to pin the tattered Su Wonwan to the ground and beat her violently. "How dare you seduce my husband, shamelessly claiming you never deal with women? You're not a woman yourself. You're really sick. Let me tell you. If you think you can steal my man, keep dreaming your wildest dreams, ugly freak." With that, she grabbed the man by the ear and dragged him into the house. He quickly stepped forward to pull away the servants who were violently beating Su Wonwan, and after he spoke to them with kind words, they finally released her. At this moment, Su Wonwan was beaten to the brink of death. She cried to Sis&Even, saying, "Ah Jin, I truly regret coming to the capital. I couldn't do anything, yet I lost my life." Sis&Even looked at her fading pupils, not knowing how to comfort her, and could only watch helplessly as she died in his arms. Looking up at the happy me on the floor above once more, he murmured, "Yeah, you must always be this happy." Holding Su Wonwan's body, Sis&Even walked away from the crowd. In a secluded spot, he jumped directly into the moat. 3 days later, their bodies were recovered from the water. I only just learned of their deaths. After all, they were my childhood playmates and my blood-related cousin. I had their bodies sent to Chingju and personally copied sutras for their rebirth. All past grievances have vanished, and my story with Song Yoonsa is just beginning. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you like this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.